So I figured I'd do a little bit of an update vlog or systems vlog or just something or another, whatever you want to call it. Just to kind of fit in between some of these videos that I haven't quite finished yet. And just talk about what's happened to certain systems that I've shown and what things have kind of become, and some of that stuff I got back from the vintage computer haul that I did and stuff like that. So yeah, anyway, this is the Compaq Deskpro XE 4100, and this actually is a 46DX4100 based computer, although right now I've got an AMD DX266 in it. And you might remember if you watched, I can't remember which video it was that I showed this in originally, but I said something about that the computer itself turned on but it was giving a keyboard error, and I did find the problem to that. One of the chips, I think it was this one, you can see there's some corrosion on those pins. This is the area where something was spilled on this, and some of the pins did in fact get corroded. The solder joint to the motherboard itself there got corroded, so I did have to go through and touch these up with some solder, and that seems to have been what fixed the problem, because it's working perfectly fine now. So this is fully functional at the moment, except for one tiny little thing, and that is the lack of a hard drive. First, I couldn't figure out exactly where the hard drive would have went in this thing, but I'm pretty sure it went right here, and there should be a plate, a mounting plate that the hard drive screws into, and you lock it in, slide it in, and you plug the cable in right here. I think that's where it's supposed to go. Right now I've got a CD-ROM down here, and I was able to find some mounting rails from either another CD-ROM that I pulled out, or maybe I got these at work, I don't remember. But anyway, I found those, and they work just fine in this case. So I'm going to have to see, next time I go over there, I'm going to have to look and see if I can find the mounting plate that would have went in here. Somehow that escaped me when I was over there, so that might be tricky, because I don't think I'm going to be able to find one of those on eBay. I don't even know what the part number would be. I might find one, I don't know, but if I would run a compact flash card or something, it probably wouldn't be an issue. But that's where we're at right now with that. You can see the top of the case right there. Underneath that is the Packard Bell. Yeah. That actually works perfectly fine. It seems like there's something wrong with that. Maybe the hard drive was wiped, I don't remember. And you might remember too, I talked about this Compaq Deskpro 560 XL. That computer is still dead, unfortunately. I don't really honestly know what's wrong with it. The main, I'm going to call it the main system board, because it's, I guess, main motherboard, main logic board, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. The main board in it, that might be bad, or the CPU card might be bad. I don't really know. I spent a lot of time with that CPU card and inspecting it, touching up solder joints that I thought might have looked questionable, and I even replaced the CPU socket on it. That was a lot of fun, because I saw that there were some pins inside of that CPU socket when you latch it down that were bent, smashed, or whatever. And I thought, oh, that's why this isn't working, but that didn't fix it. So until I can figure out something to do with that, the parts, I can get the motherboard on eBay for about 50 bucks. The guy, I think I would knock him down on the price a little bit. Probably, if I can get it for like 20, 25 bucks, it might be worth it. But right now, if the motherboard doesn't fix it and the CPU board is really what's bad, I can't find one of those CPU boards. So right now that system's just kind of sitting there waiting, unfortunately. I did buy a CPU board for that Compaq, and it does fit, and I thought this might be an interesting upgrade option for it. Dual socket 5s right there with Pentium 166s, and it was complete with RAM. This CPU card does fit in there perfectly fine. It does turn on, but no post. I do get one post code show up on my microscope post card, so that's at least something, but it doesn't get any further than that. It never actually boots up or displays anything, so unfortunately this hasn't worked either. But I don't think this board's bad, honestly. That's more than the other board did. The other board was, if I got a postcode, it was 1 in 20 times. This one does it consistently, and so there might be something to that. I don't know. Let's see here. This board was one that I pulled out, and it's actually kind of an interesting board, and this is something that I plan to do a video about. Another comparison video like I did the Socket 7 face-off. This is actually a Neptune chipset motherboard. It is a Dell motherboard, but it's a Neptune chipset. And Neptune is the very first Socket 5 chipset that Intel put out. This is very closely related to the Mercury chipset that the Pentium 60 and 66s use. In fact, it's basically the identical chipset to that. So I'm kind of curious if there's any difference between this performance-wise and the Mercury, if this has the same kind of interesting little performance issues that that one did. But yeah, so that's kind of interesting. That's the very first Intel chipset motherboard right there for Socket 5. It's too bad it's a Dell, that special little OEM form factor. It does have an ATX header, and that's the only reason why I haven't tested it yet, because I don't know if that's really ATX. So this might be like my XPS 120 that I did a video about, where it looks like an ATX header, but it may or may not be. I haven't actually tried to see, so yeah. But if it's not, well, I guess I'll just fry the motherboard, right? That's about all you can really do. I guess that was up here. One of the systems that I got recently, it's because it's been about a month now, was this little guy. I got this on eBay. It's an Acer. Nicely yellowed Acer. AcerPower is what they call it. This is a Pentium 60 system. And it's fully functional, fully working, and it's all there. The hard drive was pulled out of it, but that's no big deal. It's kind of a bit of a bitch to get into, I have to say. Because they got this latch right here that you're supposed to push, and then you're supposed to slide the case back, and the whole thing folds out. It's a clamshell case, just like the Dells and the PowerMac G3 and G4s. It's kind of cool. But it's a pain in the butt to get that to slide, because you got to have like 3 hands. One to hold it, one to push it, and one to flip it. It's like, wow. But yeah, that's a good system, and it let me test the Pentium 60 CPUs that I have, and the FDivBug Pentium that I have does in fact work, proving that yes, there's something wrong with that Compaq system other than the CPU. So there will be a video about this. I plan on doing a whole actual real video on it, but I just thought I'd show that right now, just kind of give a little bit of a teasers of something coming up. And yes, the ultimate Athlon XP system is still sitting there. I do still have it. Nice pretty orange. This was another recent eBay acquisition, an OptiViper chipset based motherboard. And I actually had this board back when it was new. This isn't mine, obviously, but this is the first motherboard that I bought to upgrade my CTX computer, which I plan on doing a video about as well. Since people seem to like watching videos about their very first computer. Yeah, anyway, so this is the very first motherboard that I ever bought and upgraded, and I bought it with a AMD K5, although this isn't the K5 that I had. This is one out of my dad's computer from back in the day. Mine was a PR133, this is a PR166, but I think that's where we're going to run it. This board does work. It's a fully functional board. I did have to put a cache stick in it, though. I believe this board was sold under the Amptron brand name, at least mine was, that I had from back in the day. I'm pretty sure this is a PC chips based or made motherboard, and the reason I say it is because if you take a look at the memory slots there and the IDE slots and all the PCI slots, I don't know if they show up very good on camera, but they're all gold plated. Every jumper, every connector, header, even the keyboard, I don't know what you call that, little cover, whatever, it's all gold plated. And that's something you can see also the revision number right there, which is another common signature of PC chips boards. Not like it really means a whole lot. It is missing the voltage regulator, so is mine. This is just the way they came. This is an interesting motherboard for a couple reasons. It's an Opti Viper chipset. This is, to my knowledge, the last chipset Opti ever made before they finally left the market and Intel forced them out of the market, I guess. It's a socket 7 board, but without the voltage regulator, it can only run single volt CPUs, so, or single rail CPUs if you want to be technically accurate about that. So it's really technically a socket 5 motherboard right now with a socket 7 on. This is kind of one of those in-between eras when socket 7s were just starting to come out or just being announced, and so they were making motherboards in preparation for that. And so they started using the socket 7, but it's really only meant for socket 5 the way it is right now out of the box, and you have to buy a voltage regulator. You see that with the VX chipsets as well, the Intel VX chipset. You see that voltage regulator on some of them. I don't know if any voltage regulator that has that pinout would work in this thing. I don't know if they're standardized or if there's proprietary shenanigans that went on with those things. I don't have any plans on running a socket 7, a true socket 7 processor in this. This is just going to be my socket 5, basically. And I'll probably keep the AMD K5 in it because that's just kind of the way I want to do things with that. The gigantic behemoth of an AT&T 386 computer here, as you saw in one of those vintage computer, or vintage, whatever I call it, Mega Hall videos, that's what I call it. It's still a massive tower, that's for sure. This thing does work fully. It is a very interesting motherboard in this thing. It's a massive board, and there's no, what I can tell, there's no discrete, there's nothing on here that's actually a chipset, what I would consider a chipset, where you've got, you know, something, you know, like that on it. There's nothing like that on this board. It's all discrete components, discrete ICs on this board. Look at all that stuff, and a lot of that's cache, actually. That is cache memory on this board. I can't remember if it's 64 or 128 or 256. I don't remember now. But it's definitely a lot going on this thing. Got 8 meg of RAM on there, and I've got another 16 on the memory expansion board right here. And the hard drive that's in this thing is a Micropolis, I think. I'd have to slide it back up. I think it was a Micropolis drive in here, and that works perfectly fine. It's a 300-something meg hard drive. Big old son of a bitch, and that sucker's heavy too. That's half the weight of the case is just that hard drive. But this motherboard's interesting because it's a 32-bit motherboard. Although it doesn't have, you can see the 32-bit ISO slot right there. I have not found anything that will fit into that slot other than this memory riser card. It's the only thing I can find that was ever made to fit those slots. They're not normal 32-bit. They're not eISA. They're not local bus. They're just 32-bit. I think they're just straight 32-bit ISA. It's probably something proprietary for AT&T when they designed this board. As far as I can tell, this is an Intel-built motherboard, at least. I think, because all of the components have Intel stickers on them right there. And you've got Intel BIOS chips right there. So it's a very early 386 board, from what I can tell. And you got a little bit of a extension on that board back there with more 16-bit ISO on it. This board's got all kinds of ISO slots on it. It's incredible. But yeah, it's a good working little system. Huh, little. The 46 tablet, that's still dead at the moment. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to look at that. It's just not really on the priorities list right now. But if I figure out what's wrong with that thing, I will definitely do a video about it, because when it worked, it was kind of interesting. And you might remember this from the Super Micro videos that I did a while back, about a year ago or something like that. This is that Super Micro full tower that I had the Pentium 2 450s in. This case no longer has that. In fact, that motherboard and processors I sold off about a year ago now. This is now the video capture system. This is what I use to capture the recorded footage for the Socket 7 face-off video. This is running a Gigabyte P85 D3 motherboard, and it's running a Intel Pentium Classic, the 20th anniversary edition Pentium in it. And I've got a PCI capture card that's an Intel card. It's a 2 VGA input card. It's pretty cool. And yeah, it's got that for 35 bucks on eBay. That was a good score. Seems to be working pretty good. You got two 1 terabyte SATA drives in here. And I've got that removable drive because what I was originally going to do with this system was to have a modern retro system to pay tribute to the Intel Pentium processor. That was the whole idea of getting the Intel Pentium 20th Anniversary Edition processor. But things change. It's another reason why I got this board, because this board has 3 or 4 PCI slots on it, which is, for a Socket 1150 motherboard, that you just don't see a modern 1150 motherboard with PCI slots on it. This one's got 4 of them on there. It's the only board I could find that had that. It's kind of a low-end board, but it works perfectly fine, and the PCI slot turned in to be necessary for that capture card. So I don't know what happened to the extra slot blank that I had, cover blank there for that case. I don't know what happened to it. One of the experiments I tried on this was to run an IDE to SATA adapter off, so I could use a gray, or yeah, gray, white, whatever you want to call it, old-fashioned DVD drive, CD drive. I got a slot load Pioneer drive that I was going to run in this thing, and those SATA to IDE adapters, they just do not work with those CD-ROMs. Works fine with hard drives, but will not work with IDE CD-ROMs. So I'm having to resort to running a black drive in this thing. So well, it's under a desk, so you know, it's hidden. This is another system that I pulled out of that vintage Mega Haul, and this system is a Pentium Pro, 200 megahertz, and it's a very good system. I put an S3 Verge, actually it's a Diamond Stealth 3D 2000 card. Brand new, as a matter of fact. I just happened to score that at the local thrift store. That was an interesting find. The reason I got that was because that's the card that I originally ran with this board. So I've got pretty much everything I need to rebuild that system if I ever decide to do that. But right now the 3D 2000 is running in this system. It's a good card. It's not the best, fastest, whatever you want to call it, but it's adequate for Windows 98. It does what I need it to do. Blood. I've been playing Blood on this system. It's any higher than 320, 240, it kind of starts to lag out. The video card just can't keep up with that resolution. But so far, I've been using this system to test the Bernoulli drives in. I've got one of the 8-bit ISA Bernoulli controllers in here. It's a SCSI controller, but it's a proprietary SCSI controller interface card that WaybackTECH had. So, and unfortunately, that's the only controller card that I've got. So, one of those drives I did sell actually, but the kind shipping people, I don't know how they did it, but they broke the front and put a dent in the case. I don't know how they did that, considering I double boxed it, and the inner box that the drive was in was separated by about 3 inches of packing around it to the outer box. So I have no idea how that happened, but they are 30 pounds a piece, so I don't know. But anyway, so until I can figure out another better way to ship those things, I'm just going to put a hold on selling those for right now. but it does prove that there is a market for those. This is another little experiment that I've tried and so far has failed. This is an IDE to SATA adapter, and this actually works perfectly fine with an IDE or SATA hard drive. I did try this on 120 gig SATA hard drive, as a matter of fact, and the BIOS on this 486 board actually surprisingly recognized it, which shocked the shit out of me. But it does work. It does work perfectly fine. But the reason that this is kind of a fail is because I actually had something else in mind for this. This is what I had in mind for it. Instead of going with a CF card, have a true SSD. This is a PCIe SSD. This is a 4 gigabyte card, I think. It's actually for a notebook computer. And it's on a SATA interface card. It isn't totally a complete failure, but this card, the motherboard, does not recognize this at all. And I say it's not a complete failure because neither does the more modern motherboards. Doesn't see this at all. So I don't know if this card, it's out of an HP laptop, so I don't know if this card's just not compatible with this, or if the card's maybe actually bad. The seller said it was good. Seller said it was tested working, so, but it doesn't recognize it. Even on a modern system plugged into a SATA port, it doesn't recognize it. So I don't know what to do about that. Unfortunately, that's kind of been a failure. I kind of wanted to try this instead of a CF card because, well, this was a cheaper route. I only paid like $7 for that card, and about another $5 or $7 for the converter board itself. And this guy was about $10. So, but this is actually good though, because you can run modern SATA drives on the IDE channel with this board, and it works perfectly fine on these old vintage computers. So at least there's an option there to be able to replace the hard drive in these things if you ever have to. And even if you can't format it to 120 gigabytes, if you can only get, 10 gig, 8 gig, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. As long as the operating system works and it boots up, it might not be quite exactly the way it should be, but if it works, it works, and that's, that's all that matters. Got to keep this stuff going. This motherboard, I don't know if any of you watch fellow YouTube user High Treason 610, but if you don't, you need to. This is the board that he sent me. This is one of the boards anyway. Well, I should say this is the only board he sent me, but he sent me some processors too. Good board. Good board. This is a Micronics board with an Intel ZX46 chipset on it. This is actually the second ZX46 board that I've got. I've also got an EX chipset board, and I'd be curious to see what the differences are between the three of them. I'm going to have to set something up for that. Right now I'm running an Intel 46DX, probably a, I don't know, 33 or a 50. It's a 50. And this is a good board, a very good board. I think I've got 16 meg of RAM in this. It might be 32, but I'm thinking it's 16 because I think these are 4 mega stick. Even though there's a lot of chips on them, they're still 4 mega stick, I think. The one thing that is interesting about this board, and I don't have the printed manual at reach right now that he sent me, but this board is an example of something that occurred quite often back in the day, and that is that the motherboard is not accurate. The jumpers are not accurate. I'll give you an example here. I can't remember exactly which jumper settings are which, but I think it's for the SL chip. Basically, the jumper settings on this for the 46 SL chip, which is like just about all of them as far as I know anyway. That jumper setting does not work for the 46 SL enhanced chip. I have some, they're SX chips. It doesn't work with that. So High Treason said this board didn't work with a Pentium overdrive chip, and when you set it up with the jumpers settings in the BIOS or in the manual, that's definitely true. It doesn't work. But I think the jumper settings are wrong with that. I haven't gone through and explored that completely entirely yet, but I think that manual's wrong when it comes to the jumpers, because so far it's been wrong on the SL processor jumper settings, so I think it's wrong on some other ones too. Interestingly, he sent this board with a, if I can find it in my shelf here, yeah. He sent this board with this UMC Super 33. This chip works fabulous on this board. It's a very fast chip, and I will be doing a video about this chip. But all I can tell you is this is definitely by far, clock for clock, the fastest 46 chip that I have ever seen. And I'm pretty sure that Intel was shitting themselves when these processors came out, and that's why they weren't allowed to be sold in the US. But interestingly enough, it's only, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's only the non-Super 33 labeled ones that actually say, or excuse me, I'm saying that wrong. It's only the Super 33 chips, the ones that are labeled Super 33, that say not for import into the US. The U5S33 chips don't have this labeling on there. And I don't think there's a technical difference between the U5S and the U5S Super 33 chips. I don't think there's any difference between them. I can't find any difference between them when I look the specs up. But anyway, this chip is this is a very good processor. This is, if I could recommend a 46 processor, this would be it if they were more easily obtainable. They were cheaper. There is a U5S on eBay for like 35 bucks right now, and I'm thinking of getting it, but because I'd like to overclock one of these to like 50 megahertz or 60 megahertz, but I don't really want to overclock High Treason's chip. You know, it's just kind of one of those things. But this is a very good chip. I'm very glad to have it, and I've never had one before, and I thought the Cyrix chips were great, but UMC kicks ass. Last but not least, under the desk here is a massive Dell server. Why in the hell would I have that? Well, that's the computer that I put Windows 10 on a few months ago and did a video about how to find the product key, which was kind of silly, I guess, because that really didn't apparently matter. Plus, I get spammed on that. Yeah, anyway. That's actually potentially going to become my new, whatever you want to call it, video editing machine. That has two LGA socket 771 Xeons in it. Right now I put the 2.5s that I had in there just as a test. It's got 6 SAS 15,000 RPM hard drives in it. They're only 300 gig a piece, but that's plenty of in fact, here's one of them right here. This isn't the 300 gig, but this is only a 73 gig. I don't know why this was in there, but 15,000 RPM. So it can actually hold up to 8 drives. That box can also hold a maximum of 96 gig of RAM. The faceplate's in another room right now, but yeah, it's a beast. It's definitely a beast. 48 gig of RAM would cost me about $100 for the ECC RAM that this thing takes. I don't remember if it takes registered or just regular ECC, but either way, I think I've got 8 in it right now. I think that's what was in it, but it's only got 8x PCI Express slots in it. It's got 2 1 kilowatt power supplies, hot swap power supplies. Very cool. The problem is that there's no 6-pin connector for the PCI Express video card coming off of the power supply, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to rig something to make that work. Otherwise, maybe I can figure out, it's a big case, maybe I can put a second power supply in it just to run the video card. I did cut the one of the PCIe slots to fit a PCIe 16 card in there, and it does work. So I know that it will definitely function for that. I don't know what effect the 8x bandwidth is going to cause for video editing. This isn't going to be a gaming machine, it's just video editing. So all it's got to do is send the data to the video card to crunch the numbers to compress that video stream and stuff like that. But that's kind of an experiment, and I just haven't really had time to work on it lately. So Big Blue is still doing all the work. One fan is starting to seize up yet again, and I gotta lube that yet again. I may end up, if I can get that sucker working. It's gonna stay under the desk because I'm definitely not putting it up here on the desk itself, because that sucker's pretty big. But it'll just live down there. Actually, it's pretty quiet for a server. It's actually really not very loud at all. It's not really any louder than he is. So now we come to the request portion of this video. There's a guy by the name on YouTube by the name of High Treason 610, and he's going through a bit of a rough time right now. He's being forced to move out of his home and stuff like that, and it's a pretty rough time for him. I figured I'd try to do something nice for him since it's Christmas season and stuff like that. Try to help the guy out a little bit. He's a good guy. So I ask if you've never heard of him or whatever, go check out his channel, because he does a lot of the same stuff I do with vintage computers, and he's got stuff about the Pentium 60 and Socket 7 Showdown and some 386 and 486 stuff and the UMC processor and stuff like that. And he's been on YouTube for years, but he doesn't seem to be all that known, I guess, just the way YouTube works, I guess. But anyway, he was talking about in one of his last videos, talking about how he had he's up to 700 subscribers, and it was like a big shock to him, and he didn't know what to do, and he's like, holy shit, and he didn't think he'd ever get to 1,000. He might, but he never, not sure if he'd ever get to 1,000 subscribers. So I figured I'd just pop this at the end of this video, and if you haven't heard of him, go check his channel out. I'll leave a link to his channel at the description of this video. And he's also does a channel with gaming. He does some gaming videos. He calls it High Treason LP for Let's Play. He's got Harry Potter and Blood and Doom and Duke Nukem, I think. He's got a bunch of stuff on there. But yeah, I just trying to help a fellow YouTuber out. He's going through a hard time, so I figured, hey, I'd try to do something nice for him. He's a cool guy. He's a funny guy, and I think you'd like his videos. If you never heard of him, you never come up in your search or in your YouTube feed or whatever there when you log in, go check him out. So anyway, this will conclude this video, and hope you guys take care, and we'll see you pretty soon. I think I'll get one, maybe two more videos out before Christmas. So anyway, take care, everyone. Peace out, everyone. Well, now there's two phones that look identical. In fact, they are identical. Oh, bloody hell. That one broke. Yeah. That one works just fine, though. Why do I have two phones, you might ask? Well, I remember... If you watch my channel or happen to watch that video, you might know that I had to replace the screen in this phone because it broke. Well, guess what? It broke again. And this time, I wasn't going to go through that same bullshit that I had to go through last time. Not to mention, this screen's actually starting to come up right there a little bit. Well, one of the corners was anyway. Well, anyway. I can peel that up off of there, but yeah, this is the one I replaced. And phone took a dump out of my pocket and landed right there. So much for a case and a tempered glass screen protector. Yeah, piece of shit. Anyway, $100 for a refurbished phone versus $90 to fix the screen. Yeah, that's why I've got two of them.